Hi, good afternoon. You're watching WLGR, LaGuardia Web Radio. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. The show is What's Going On. And today my guest is Kyle Hollar-Gregory of the Social Science Department and a member of the Academic Standing Committee, who's going to be on to talk about the credit, no credit policy, which is a big issue now as we are in finals week here at LaGuardia. Say hi, Kyle.
Hi, how is everyone? I'm glad to be on the show, Hugo.
Great. And thanks for coming. I know you're probably busy with your own finals and grading and all those things, right?
Yes, so very busy with student questions and final exams and grading.
So before we get started in talking about the issues, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, education, things like that?
Yes, I started with a degree in economics, an undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland. So I went to the University of Maryland College Park, where I obtained an economics degree. I had some experience working finance for Prudential Capital Group, which is a group that was part of Prudential Financial. So initially, my career started off in the field of economics, where I did finance and I did performance reviews of private placements, bonds, and different security instruments. After spending about 4 years as a analyst, I moved on and I went to law school, where I had an interest in criminal law, entertainment law, business law, and other fields. And once I went to law school, I went to Rutgers University School of Law in Newark, New Jersey. That's where I graduated from. I had some experience doing clinical work there. I had some experience in my first legal internship when I attended Rutgers Law School, and my first legal internship was for the New Jersey and New York Port of Authority. That was my first actual legal job, and I enjoyed it. Uh, After I graduated from law school, I began working as a law clerk for the Superior Court of New Jersey. That's where I worked in the criminal division of Essex County, which Newark is the largest city in New Jersey. So in that division, we had a lot of cases, and I reviewed many criminal cases, which included robberies, homicides, and the like. After working as a law clerk, I worked as a paralegal and as a professor at Essex County College, and I was also an adjunct at LaGuardia during this time. So at LaGuardia, I've worked as an adjunct in the Business and Technology Department and as an adjunct in the Social Sciences Department and the Criminal Justice Program. And then in September recently, I was hired full-time as an assistant professor at LaGuardia. Also, I had some experience as an attorney working for a law firm, Freeman Law Center. That's where I practiced family law. I did a lot of municipal cases, which included traffic violations and misdemeanor cases. And I also practiced personal injury law. So a lot of my experience is in civil law, but I also did have some experience in criminal law also when I worked as a law clerk. So I'm currently an attorney in New Jersey. I'm licensed in New Jersey as an attorney. And currently I'm working as an assistant professor now, as I mentioned, for the criminal justice program in the social sciences department. So that's just a little bit of background information about myself.
That's actually quite a bit. You know, the one thing we're experiencing is a bit of fuzziness from the microphone, and we're trying to figure out if it's coming from your headphone or not. And I don't know what the setup was like before when you weren't using your headphones and if it would change the sound, but, just apologize for that. And I don't know what's going to happen. What happens if you take off your headphones right now? Are you going to be able to hear me?
Hello?
Yep, I hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
And I'm not experiencing any echoing. Yeah. So let's do it this way for now.
All right.
So you started in business, but you switched over into the social science department. Criminal justice is the biggest department in that, and it's one of the bigger departments, one of the bigger majors in the college. And a lot of these kids go right on into social science to John Jay, right?
Correct. Yes, we have a program with John Jay where students are able to transfer into that 4-year college from LaGuardia once they graduate. So a considerable amount of students do pursue additional education at John Jay College.
And, I think that a lot of them, the notion is that a lot of them are going to go into law enforcement, but then there are those also that they see it as a pre-law degree, right?
Yes, so some students are interested in law enforcement, but there are others are interested in being attorneys or getting a degree related to the law. And criminal justice is a great area to study if you do want to pursue a career as an attorney. So many students do go to John Jay. Some may take courses like philosophy of law or other related law courses at John Jay if they are pursuing that type of career.
Yeah, I guess and just to stay on this a little bit, why did you switch? How did I mean, I'm the last one to say, but I always joke about my undergraduate and graduate career. It took me about 13 years to get a 6-year degree, right? Between all the different things I did as in what is it, community college, then the 4-year degree, and grad school. I was a little more focused, obviously. What made you switch from economics and find yourself, dealing with criminal law? How did that happen?
So when I was hired by Prudential Financial, that was around that was a little bit before 2012, around
Right.
2008, 2007. It was around 2007, 2008 after I graduated from University of Maryland. And during that time, the subprime mortgage crisis hit.
I see. Yeah.
So I didn't lose my job. I still had my job. I didn't get laid off or anything, but the opportunities available to me weren't as abundant as I thought they would be initially. So I continued to work at Prudential. I reached the highest level of my job at Prudential as a security operations associate.
Uh-huh.
And then at that time, my job wanted me to pursue a career. Like they wanted me to go to school to get a business degree,
Right.
a degree in business. And so I began looking into educational opportunities, whether I would get a law degree or a business degree. And I had a long history in my family of attorneys and judges. My mother, my grandfather, my great grandfather were all attorneys. So after consulting with them and discussing, what would be the best career path for me, I thought obtaining a legal degree would be the best for me because it would allow for me to be diversified, meaning that if I wanted to pursue business still, I could still pursue business with a law degree. But if I had any other interests like in entertainment law or criminal law, it also opened those doors for me also, and for teaching. So that was really behind the basis of my decision was I wanted to have a degree where it allowed me to practice in many different fields, except just one field, or concentrated in just one field. So that was a major reason behind why I decided to get a law degree. Looking back, my job would have paid for 90% of my business degree. So if I had stayed, so financially that probably would have been a better decision because law school is expensive. But I had such a strong interest in law, criminal law, entertainment law, business law, that after consulting with family members and my peers and looking at what was the best career option for me, I thought obtaining a law degree and becoming an attorney would be the best for me. And I was going to possibly do a joint program where I got a master's degree in business and law. But that program would have took a little bit more time in school and maybe a little bit more money. So I decided financially for me, the best decision was just to study law and concentrate in that field.
I think it's a good lesson for students because I always feel, certainly you can get a degree in whatever it is, but if you don't have that mobility to be able, as the job market changes, to be able to move into other fields, it can, you get stuck. And which is why a lot of times I'm just telling people, if you don't know what you want to do, English and liberal arts are great degrees because at least you'll learn how to write, how to talk, how to speak. Communication skills are strong. So, but being an attorney as well that's useful in almost anything you're going to do. So let's talk about because you wear, like, as a LaGuardian, you wear a lot of hats. We met in the faculty council meeting because you're a representative for social science in that body, which a lot of people don't understand what faculty council is. So we might want to just say quickly is unlike the Senate, where it's tripartite, and there are folks from staff, and there are folks, students as well. Faculty council is exclusively students. There are representatives from departments like yourself who are elected, but every faculty member is a member of faculty council and could attend and participate. They just don't necessarily get a vote when the time comes to make a decision. I attend by virtue of, besides being a faculty member, I attend because I'm University Faculty Senator, and I'm elected. The faculty council are the ones that conduct those elections, and we technically answer to faculty council as well as the Senate. But you also are on the academic standing committee.
Correct.
As well. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I don't know as much about that, although I know Vera Albrecht, for example, who is in my department, is involved with academic standing, but I don't know as much about it. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm an alternate for faculty council, and I'm a member for the academic standing committee. With this academic standing committee, we review the policies, the academic policies contained in the catalog, the academic catalog. We make suggestions to the Senate for enforcement of policies and certain issues that we believe policies aren't being adhered to. We also, make suggestions to the provost regarding academic policies. So we're basically a body that reviews all the academic policies throughout the college, and we make sure they're being adhered to. We don't do the enforcement. That's usually the Senate and provost, but we do make suggestions to those staff members regarding policies and procedures, and if there needs to be any changes or addendums to policies, we make those suggestions. So we're basically a governing body of faculty members. The head of the academic standing committee is Alexandra Rojas, and she is the chair, and so we make decisions on the policy, how it should be adhered to, and if there is a need for any policy changes, academic policies.
Yeah, I see Alex many times is at the Senate giving reports, and it's a committee of the Senate. What has it been like this semester in that body?
So it's been interesting with COVID. I've just became a member.
Right.
Not have the opportunity to be at a meeting where we all met in person. We meet all through Zoom currently right now. But it's been interesting to learn about the committee, understand its functions, its ability to influence decision-making processes at the college. So it's very interesting. It's been very interesting so far, especially given the fact that COVID hit and we've only been able to do meetings online. But we discussed many of the policies in the academic catalog. If we receive complaints or suggestions about enhancing our policies, we look into that and make recommendations to the college. And one thing that was interesting that we did this year was the non-degree students. We changed the policy for accepting non-degree students. They no longer need to pass certain exams, placement exams, in order to get into the college. Now, in those situations, as long as they have a transcript or a GED, they can still apply, non-degree students. So that was one of the initiatives I voted on so far as an academic standing committee, which we suggested to the Senate.
And non-degree students, who would be a non-degree student? Are we talking about adult continuing education, or what are we talking about here?
No, students who do not have a major. So they're non-matriculated students.
I see.
So basically, they haven't selected a specific major.
Right.
The major being liberal arts student that doesn't have a specific major, and if they don't have a specific major that they're working on at the college, then they're considered non-degree students.
Okay. Besides because we are going to get into the credit no credit issue, but besides this particular issue, have there been any other ways that academic standing has had to adapt or talk, or some of the issues that, for example, the definition of courses. All of it, we started face to face, right? 95% of the courses, whatever, I don't know what the percentage is, were face to face. We switched them, on a dime within 1 week. to fully online. Then we declared that the summer courses were also going to be online. So actually, an email went out from Eric Hoffman about contacting your students about how we're going to be communicating with them. And I checked on CUNY First. Mine is still listed as a hybrid course which makes me wonder if the governor lifted sanctions somewhere in the middle of the summer, would I be face to face with my students, for example, in late July? And of course, the question about what we're going to declare. I didn't go on CUNY First to see what we're technically listing the existing courses as. But I mean, do any of those topics come up and run through academic affairs academic standing that you guys have to weigh in on?
So we did discuss this summer, it's supposed to be distance learning, so we discussed that. In terms of distance learning, we have discussed, things like academic integrity, giving exams to students and how to maybe looking into programs that will help with eliminating any cheating or fraud online when taking exams. So that's one of the issues we discussed with distance learning. I wasn't at the meetings where we discussed the hybrid cases, but for now, I know that we will be having online classes through the spring. But I know we're still waiting to hear about the fall. So we've mentioned and discussed those things, but I was not aware of that some classes were appearing as hybrid, as you mentioned.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if you go on CUNY First and you see what the listings are, for example, my summer courses are listed as hybrid, and I'm guessing because it is a fact. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
For example, supposedly the city. I'm not in the city. I'm out of town, right? I'm in Connecticut, so I don't know what it's. I don't have any direct experience about what's happening on the street. But the news reports were that the so-called city is open for business, whatever that means. And I started watching The Governor, but I couldn't get very far with that. And we know he decides. Academic standing doesn't decide whether kids are going to be face to face, nor does the chancellor or the mayor. The governor is the one who's going to end up deciding for us, and so till he says so otherwise. But
those are issues involving like distance learning and reopening of the college. That's all dependent, as you said, on the state. But what we have heard is that for the summer, though, they're going to be implementing online distance learning. But for the fall, I have not been aware of what we'll be doing going forward in terms of distance learning. Whether it will be hybrid courses, whether it be all distance learning, because there are reports saying that the COVID may come back in the fall.
If we look at history, the 1918 pandemic, whatever you want to call it, the Spanish flu. They had at least two different revisits of whatever it was, the virus. Well, I won't belabor this. It's really what we wanted to talk about.
Whether it's hybrid or distance learning courses, it's out of the decision making.
Yeah, it's out of your scope.
Academic standing.
So let's talk about what you guys are involved with, which is the credit, no credit policy. We can get started on the front end. And we are going to open this up for folks who are watching on Twitch. If you have questions, feel free to start sending them now because we can use it as a way to talk about this. But let's talk about the credit, no credit policy, which I think a lot of people think they understand, but I don't know if I do. Particularly as a faculty member, I think the biggest question I have is, what is student understanding of it? So in many ways, it's really the student is the one who makes it happen, right? They're the one that makes the decision. They're the one that has to fill out the paperwork and make it happen. But let's talk about, give us a little foundation about this whole credit, no credit policy. You want to talk about that?
Okay, so for the credit, no credit policy, you're correct. Faculty does not make that decision for individual students. It's the individual students that will make that decision of whether they want to implement that policy. Now, this policy is coming from CUNY, so it applies to all colleges throughout CUNY. And there may be different requirements for different schools. Like, for instance, at our school, you have 20 days to opt in to the credit, no credit policy.
As of June 15th, when the grades go in.
So the grades, I believe, will go in June 18th. And then 20 business days from that will be July 16th.
Okay, because because I got down at 4 o'clock, the grades are due on Monday the 15th. That's what but maybe they don't make them official until the 18th.
So yeah, they may not be. So basically, it'll be based upon when the grades are made official.
By the registrar, whoever it is.
Yes.
Her hand.
Correct. So essentially, the main information that students need to know. So for faculty, we have to submit our grades, but for students, 20 days after the last final submission of grades, they have the opportunity, that 20-day period, they have the opportunity to opt into the credit policy, which would be July 16th would be the last day.
All right.
And I believe, and so during that 20-day period, they have the decision to opt into the credit, no credit policy. And once they opt in, they cannot opt back out. So if they make that decision, it's a final decision for the no credit policy. In terms of the no credit policy, if a student wants to engage in this process, you can get no credits for an F grade, and then but that will stay on your transcript. So you can elect to have the no credit option for an F grade, and you can elect to have the credit option for grades D or above. And that will appear as just credit, and that will not be calculated into your GPA in terms of the no credit policy option.
So
and once you opt into it, the decision is final, though.
Right. And so the no credit, but a student could also choose to go no credit if they got more than an F, right? I mean, that's the thing too, because this is what's really interesting at LaGuardia is that, and I've been here 25 years, so I've seen a lot of different types of students, and I've known students who've gotten C's, and they come to you and they say, "Give me an F," and I would say, "Why?" And they'd say, "Because if you give me an F, I could take the class again, and I could get a higher grade, and then that replaces the F, and when they figure out my GPA." I get a higher GPA. They want to be on the dean's list here at the college, right? That's the notion of it. What they don't realize, obviously, is that when they transfer, that F is calculated into their transferring GPA. So they could be on the dean's list at LaGuardia, and they go to Baruch, and they find out they're a C student. But so there's always been crazy kids that, some kids just, insist on getting that higher grade. So a student, technically, if they didn't get the grade they wanted, could just say no. Even a B student could say A minus, could say, I don't want the credit. I want no credit. Would that entitle them to take the course over, the way that LaGuardia works and things like that?
So if they receive the no credit option,
right,
they are allowed to do that, but that will not allow them to. So that no credit option would still apply on their transcript. And then they may be able to retake the course. So if they opt for a credit grade, they will receive a credit for that course. And they may be able to register for subsequent courses. But in terms of retaking that course, it still would apply to if it's an F grade, it still would apply to the 16 credit F repeat limit.
Wait a minute.
A CR would be a passing grade, and it will replace an F, and it'll apply towards the F repeat policy. So it will count towards their 16 credit repeat policy limit.
What is the 16? I've never heard this before. What is the 16 credit repeat policy?
So the number of times you may take a course that you receive an F in.
You can take it 16 times?
16 credit F repeat policy.
Oh, 16 credits. And after that, it's like,
you cannot go over that
Vegas. You just put your hand, that's it. You got to take it.
And you have to take it. But it will not contribute, but that credit, that CR grade will not contribute to the calculation of the term GPA.
Right.
At LaGuardia. And as I said, the no credit grade will now replace a previously earned F grade. But in terms of what you were talking about, the NC grade will not be replaced and will continue to appear on the transcript. So if you do take that course and you choose, like you get an A minus and you choose to get the no credit, is not calculated into the GPA, but and therefore it will not impact the 16 credit university limitation on repeats. It's only no credit policy.
Well, yeah, it's that the F would show up in a transcript as well. The no credit would be there as well. And I mean, most people have said that we obviously we can't speak for the next institution. We're a 2-year institution. I mean, obviously, students transfer into LaGuardia, and people look at their transcripts. I've never particularly. I think now, of course, you find when you do I don't know whether it's when you're doing I forget what it's called on CUNY First, the degree works. Whether you see it in degree works or whether you see it in the new system C2C, it tells you where they got the credit from and what the grade was and who the faculty member. Sometimes the faculty member is. What I'm saying is that we don't look at it that much. But the next institution, the question will be: so a kid shows up with a transcript. There's a no credit on it. Will they be judged? What will people think of that student? Will it play a role in any kind of decision making? But we're guessing that most people will say COVID-19, spring of 2020. I mean, 2020 in general is going to be a year that everybody's going to have to give everybody a break, right?
Yes.
So is that the expectation that the transfer institutions are going to look at that and say, okay, we get it. It was the worst time.
We'll have that disclaimer that you chose to select that type of credit in light of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
But I don't want to. These type of situations should, because the no credit policy is in the best interest of the student.
Right.
So depending on the external body, it could affect your transcript negatively. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a nursing program or a licensures program, there may be certain license or certain courses that you need to get a specific grade in that course in order to apply for that license or for that or for that graduate program, that external body. So in terms of the no credit policy, they created this for the interest of the student, but on an individual case-by-case basis, it may differ. And in those situations, I would say you always want to contact your advisor, because external bodies, graduate programs, or you're trying to obtain a license, a state license, that could be affected by, deciding to take a no credit course where you don't receive an actual grade. So with those situations, I would always advise students to consult with their advisors, because in some situations it may have a negative impact. Like I said, if you're in specialized programs such as nursing and health sciences programs, it may impact a student negatively.
Let me just take a quick station break. It's LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, and my guest is Professor Kyle Hollar-Gregory of the Social Science Department, who is a member of the Academic Standing Committee, and we are talking about the no credit policy. And it's usually why I save the meat of the conversation for the second half, because we got so into it, I stopped paying attention to time. I don't know what your experience has been, and it was interesting because I was talking to Dr. Riccio before the show. We're just talking about it's finals week. Where are the students? Where is everybody at? Like everybody's. We've been looking for our students in some cases all semester, but now it's really, show up or go home, or whatever the phrase is. And I've always said to my students, historically, I said, even if you're having a tough time, come show up for finals, because you don't show up for the final, then you fall into this place which is we call the WU, where it's an unearned F, basically, and it has ramifications financially to students. You don't want to get them if you can avoid them. So I always say, even if you don't think you're going to pass the final, or the class, you should still attend, give it your best shot, because the W is really, really bad. So now we have, and it's been mixed. I mean, in some ways I've had even closer relationship with students because they're contacting me, all the time. But there's also those students, obviously, who don't respond, emails, phone calls, because we, have been utilizing web attendants to call people, use alternate emails. How do we get this word out to those students who need to hear? We've got a kid who's emotionally debilitated by what they've been put through, even maybe physically by the actual virus itself. You know, they're going to flunk the class, maybe get the WU, right?
Yes.
How is this word getting out to our students? I mean, faculty have been encouraged to talk about it to a degree, right? Because we don't really know that enough about it. We keep referring them to, for example, transfer services, I'm sure, is one place you would, because maybe they know each individual college, as you said, advisors, chairs of various departments. How is the word getting to these students?
So at one of our academic standing committees, we were informed to send out to the chairs frequently asked questions that are on the CUNY website.
Yeah.
When they were to disseminate that to faculty, and
Right.
faculty, we suggested to disseminate that information also to their students if they have questions.
Right.
We expect faculty to be aware of the no credit policy and help with advising, but in situations where they may not have the requisite information or they're unsure, they should always tell their students to contact their advisors. In terms of awareness, we're trying to have professors and faculty members aware students of the no credit policy. Like for instance, like you said, the WU grade, that can be an issue. We want students to be aware that if they do accept the WU grade, they may not be eligible for the no credit policy. And we expect faculty to know about that information and read.
Wait a minute. You're telling me if I give a student a WU, they can't utilize
the no credit grade? Yes, correct.
You're kidding me.
If you gave a student a WU, they would not be able to convert that to the no credit grade. But there may be determinations where it can be looked at as a case-by-case basis. But the general rule is that if they have received a WU in the if they receive a WU, then they won't be eligible for the no credit grade.
What if I change the grade? Like, okay, so I give a kid a WU, but they come back and they say, "Hey, professor, sorry, I was unavailable the week of finals. Can you just give me an F?" And I give them the F, but it's still got to happen before the 16th of July, right? They've got to, if they don't do it before July 16th.
So you're saying if you want to change the grade to an F,
right? Well, let's say I decided to, because obviously the faculty members we're still entitled to that right to submit a change of grade. Obviously, it's got to be signed by a chair, and or all move up that chain of approval.
So then they may be able to elect the no credit grade in that situation.
This is news. I didn't know.
If you change that grade to an F. So there are situations where if there is a discrepancy in grades that affects their no credit ability to opt in due to a professor may have given them a grade and then changed it later in time, then they will look at that as an individual case-by-case basis if it affects their financial aid and their eligibility at the college.
Here's a question for you, because this is one, my daughter's in college down in DC. And I think her mom's an attorney. I always wonder if she's going to end up an attorney. But right now it's looking like journalism, put it that way. The boyfriend is taking the LSATs, by the way. So good luck to him. But she kept asking me, "Dad, what do you think about just the universal pass, policy?" Which was this, and it came up through students. I think the USS was talking about this at one point, University Student Senate. If we just said everybody gets a pass this semester, regardless of performance, is that something that ever came up in your committee or that was ever talked about?
My opinion, no, we have not talked about that since I've joined. But I know there's other colleges that do have those policies, the pass-fail policies.
Right.
And according to CUNY, those won't be affected by this no credit policy, this no credit pass-fail policy.
You mean individual CUNY colleges have chosen?
Yes, individual CUNY colleges do have some pass-fail credit policies, and this credit policy should not affect that.
Her stance was basically nobody fails, everybody passes.
I mean, then I mean, there would be no point in of these students going to school and taking.
Well, that's what I said.
If everyone passes.
And I said, look, even if I did that, I wouldn't do it now. I'd do it on the back end, right? You give everybody a break at the end. You don't give them a break in the beginning because, like you said, nobody would even try.
But one thing we always want to remember is academic integrity. We do want students to still participate in these classes and be graded based upon their performance. So we still want that because, other students may be upset if they did all the work and they did all of the work and they did more work than another student, but that student still passes when they did minimal work. That could cause issues with academic integrity and things of that nature. And it could cause issues with certain students. So I don't believe, an entire, policy where everyone passes would be beneficial.
Right.
College, because we still want to hold some students to certain standards.
Yeah.
Others may think they don't have to come to class. They don't have to do all the assignments because regardless of the amount of work I put in, I'll still pass this course.
I mean, there has been stuff, that's come out in the press where students have said they felt that this semester teachers were almost too lenient. I'm not talking about LaGuardia, or I'm not even talking about CUNY. I'm talking about nationally, that they felt as if they were given, in some sense, a pass, and that they weren't being held up to the same rigor.
Yeah, so me talking to my students individually, I've heard mixed responses. I've heard some students say some professors have not been lenient enough or they don't give them enough assistance.
Right.
I've heard as you said, I've heard some professors maybe have been too lenient. I've heard. I think we do need a balance between being lenient and allowing a student to pass a course where they do no work and then being lenient. So I think it's important that we hold every student to the same standard, but also recognize that we are in a pandemic and some students may be affected personally, mentally. They may have death in their family, so we should still be reasonable in these situations. I think being unreasonable will affect the college if many professors are doing that in our student retention. So I think we should be reasonable if we are being lenient. If a student is saying he may have caught the COVID, or if he has a doctor's note, we should set that standard that they have to inform the professor or the instructor of their personal issues. And then the professor can make that decision on an individual case-by-case basis. But I think we should always take into account how students are affected in their courses when it comes to, doing their coursework, learning this new online distance learning capabilities, and also understanding how to learn online, because students did not sign up for this in the beginning, and this was just something that came out of nowhere, and everyone was forced to go into social distance learning. So I think we should be lenient. We should also be aware that there may be issues with academic integrity because we can't monitor students as we did before when we had in-class person exams. Now they're all doing it online, so there is the risk of students colluding and things of that nature. So it's difficult right now, say, for professors to monitor students. But I do think we need to be lenient and reasonable at the same time.
My understanding is, here's a question that's coming in. We're not at the we're on the front end of the question, but of the question period. But why not? I have some questions too, but I'll keep going. So this one is saying, thank you for discussing this important topic right now. So 2 questions. First, what about students who request an incomplete, INC? How will this policy impact that process, if at all? And then secondly, so what do you think is most important for students to remember if they are thinking of using the credit, no credit policy?
Okay, so in terms of the incomplete, there's going to be a 2-part answer. The first is that if you receive an incomplete grade, then once that is rectified, once you have to come to a resolution, you still have the opportunity to opt in to the no credit policy.
You're kidding.
Yes, so you would still have that ability if you receive an incomplete grade. Once you complete the assignments that were necessary for that,
or the grades,
to an actual grade, then you may still be eligible for the no credit opt-in policy. Now, in terms of if you have an incomplete grade that turns into an FINC,
you mean that automatically because of your failure to even address
the assignment? Yes.
Right.
Then in those situations, you cannot opt into the no credit policy.
So you would have to submit the work, flunk or get a low grade, and then request the NC grade.
So you would have, yeah. So basically, if you got an FIN, which basically would be, like you flunked the course because you didn't complete those requirements for the incomplete grade, then you're not
Right.
going to opt in. But if you do resolve that incomplete grade and you get a grade, then you can opt into the credit policy.
And I think people another thing is that the incomplete is not something that kind of happens to you. People have to be proactive to seek that. They have to ask. You have to fill out the paperwork, and the faculty member then just signs it. And that needs to be clear because a lot of faculty members don't know. The student has to make the request for that grade. I think a lot of them are thinking they're doing students a favor by giving them an incomplete, and don't realize that that's not the way it works. What was the second question?
Standards for the incomplete grades, students should have completed at least a certain percentage of the course if you are going to offer that incomplete grade. And as you said,
and they have to ask for it. They have to trigger it. So well, what about this second part of the question, which is, most important for students to remember when thinking of using this credit, no credit policy?
So it's very important to remember that this policy is in the best interest of the student. But if you're going to do this policy, you want to look at how it may affect scholarships, how it may affect private loans you may receive for schooling, how external bodies may be affected. So if you go to a graduate school, if you're doing the no credit policy, and there's certain courses that they want you to have a grade in, that could affect your admissions to certain external bodies. Also, like the nursing and the health sciences program, or programs where you want to obtain a license, you want to look at the course that you're opting in for the no credit policy, because certain courses may want to see a letter grade in order for you to be eligible for certain licensures or acceptance to external bodies. So the thing that I think is most important is I want students to remember that this policy is in the best interest of a student. It was created for the best interest of a student, but it may differ on individual case-by-case basis depending on the program that you're enrolled in. And in those situations, you should always consult with your advisor, because different departments may have different departments. The no credit policy may affect differently. Like I said, nurses and different programs where you need licensures. So that's one of the important things I think students should remember. If you're going to transfer or you're graduating, it's important to look at how that no credit policy may affect your GPA. If you need a specific GPA to graduate, that's another important issue you should look into. So if you're not going to get a grade if you opt to do the no credit policy, you're not going to get a grade for that, and it won't be calculated into your GPA. So if you need to get a requisite GPA before you graduate, or you want to have a certain GPA when you're graduating, then that's another thing you should look into.
I was going to ask you, when you tell a student about the credit, no credit policy, where do you send them? And I did a quick search on the website, and interestingly enough, the first thing that popped up was the health science department. It's got like a 2-sheet on what to do.
Yeah. So, I have that sheet in front of me too. And one of the things they recommended, they said for all students pursuing health science majors requiring candidacy, like nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, are strongly encouraged to have a letter grade A and F for all preclinical and clinical coursework. So in that program, they do encourage you to get a letter grade for certain courses, because it can, as I said, affect external bodies.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, I'm trying to figure out where I would go. And so there's the responding to COVID-19 page and student resources and facts. And I still don't see the button that says apply for credit. No, oh, here it is. Well, here's the credit, no credit fact sheet. That's from the central office. CUNY. By the way, I will say to folks, we tried to get the folks from CUNY Central to be on this show. I tried, but because LaGuardia, we go at least a month over. Like everybody else has basically finished except for Gutman, King Carl, and ourselves. So they put their energies in other places to get this word out. But again, so that one of the places they try to send you is the central office. on the fact sheet, but I still can't see where the button is that I
So,
press and says apply for
so
credit or credit.
if you go to cuny.edu/coronavirus/credit no credit policy FAQs,
Right,
you'll see a student opt-in how to, and you can click on that button. It's
right.
right below campus contact, and it goes through all the steps of how you can log into CUNY First. Oh, that's another thing I want to remind you, because you made a mention about the degree work. In order to opt in to the CUNY First no credit policy, it must be through CUNY First, the CUNY First portal, not through DegreeWorks.
So if they went to their CUNY First, wouldn't they see that button, the credit no credit policy button?
Yeah, so you would go to Student Center,
Right.
click View Grade, then you would select Opt-in Grade, CRNC, for classes you want to opt in, confirm the ones that you want to opt in, and then click Submit. And then after you do that, you can review your grades, contact your advisor, contact your registrar office, and contact your help desk just to make sure it went through. Or if you have any errors, then you can contact your advisor or the registrar office.
I'm wondering if they're going to need like a team of people on call to walk people through this at post June 18th. And who will have, I'm sure Burhan or faculty are going to start getting a lot of emails. Hey, professor, how do I do that?
So we do want faculty to be aware, of the policy and try to help students.
Right.
But if faculty is unaware, or they have questions that they may not answer, then there will be a team of advisors that students can contact also.
Okay. So yeah, so basically just send them to their advisor, ideally. Yeah. I'm I like to, one of the things I've learned at LaGuardia is when a student has an issue, you try to get them to the goal line. If I got to walk them down to C107, if I got to take them over to the M-Built, whatever it is I got to do, because I want to leave them with, okay, yeah, it's done. It's going to be taken care of. Somebody like that. And obviously right now we're not in a position to do that. I can't physically take anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. Since we're almost out of time, so this will be my last question for you, which is there any talk of extending this policy into the summer, since the summer was transitioned to an online learning experience listed as hybrid now, because I think there was a period of time where they weren't even listing courses as hybrid courses. Or do you think that this is a policy which will extend into spring session 2?
Yes, I do believe this will extend to spring session 2, this policy, the no credit policy. So I believe it is. I believe so. For now, it is extending to spring 2, because that will also be distance learning. But I haven't heard an official statement that it will. But I do believe it will extend to spring 2.
Well, it's okay. I mean, it kind of just dawned on me while we were talking about this that obviously this semester is the most unusual of circumstances, right? Because it happened to us all, students and faculty, and we've got a little more lead. And I'm looking forward to that week between classes, because I am teaching in the summer, to prepare for online ed, which, I remember when I took the course with the School for Professional Studies, basically the rule of thumb is you can't spell out things enough. You can't write out enough instructions. The more specific you can be in telling students, everything from how long an assignment is going to take to do to, how the entire class will go week by week from day one. If you could literally hand them the script as of day one, it'd be ideal. But, we're certainly, we've seen it coming. Let's put it that way. We're all at this point veterans of the experience, even if some of us certainly would benefit from an online education training.
Yes. Yes, and for faculty, we all can benefit from online training. I'm actually taking an online training course now for social distance learning through the college.
Which one? Through the center or through the School for Professional Studies?
Through
CPL?
Yes. And it's beneficial to understand how to use Blackboard, Zoom, and also how to input grades through Blackboard, so students are aware of their grades continuously. I think that's beneficial for students, especially with this new credit, no credit policy, so they're aware of, significantly ahead of time of what their decision may be. So having, grades through Blackboard, the program teaches you how to put your grades on Blackboard, also how to correspond with students through Blackboard.
It should, yeah, shouldn't be a mystery, right? A student should not be asking, "How am I doing?"
Correct.
Because if they are, then I usually say, "What are you talking about? Your grades are on Blackboard. You could,
Yes, correct.
you could look at them today. You could have looked at them yesterday. They've been there all the time."
So I think that's good too. What I really think is beneficial from everything that's occurring is that more faculty are learning how to use Blackboard and these online resources. I already was familiar with all these different resources, but I think moving forward with the educational system, knowing how to interact with them online will be beneficial to all of us faculty, staff, and students.
We're almost out of time, Kyle. Any last remarks you'd like to make, or anybody you'd like to thank?
So thank you for having me on, Hugo. I want to thank you. And I just want to say, as a disclaimer, is that if you have any questions regarding, the no credit policy or grading, faculty and students, you can always look online for the frequently asked questions on the CUNY website, and for students, you can always contact your advisors. And it's important to know that this policy is for the best interest of the student, and in some cases, on an individual case-by-case basis, it may affect everyone differently. But all students should contact their advisors if they have any questions regarding this policy or anything that I've discussed also.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I mean, I remember when I asked you at the faculty council meeting, I was perfectly prepared to have you say no or want to invite a lot of other folks, because this is a hot topic, and to put your face to it, it took a lot of guts, and I'm glad and that you have a deeper understanding of it than I did, and that helped me today. So I just want to thank you for being on our show. For those folks who've been watching, this is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, and my guest today was Professor Kyle Hollar-Gregory of the Social Science Department, who is a member of the Academic Standing Committee and who took the time today to walk us through the no credit policy, which is a big deal for our students. Hopefully everybody's gotten a little taste of what we should try to share with our students to give them their best options moving forward. And I want to just thank you for listening. And we'll go out the way we came in. Mr. Pope, take us out. Thanks.